Hello, and welcome to another AutoCAD modeling learning assignment video. In this video, we're going to be creating a PDF guide to the different line styles that are available in AutoCAD. So I'm going to be walking you through the process and showing you how to produce in a PDF for your assignment. If you follow along with this video exactly, you will get full credits on your assignment. So let's go ahead and dive in. First of all, I got AutoCAD pulled up. AutoCAD cares about my privacy, so that's good to know. Back in my AutoCAD drawing, I started a brand new drawing. You'll notice this is drawing 1. I got my origin down here. I got all my settings down here. I set my OSNAP settings last time, so you'll notice that I have my midpoint set up. I have extension, intersection. I also really like quadrant. Some people hate quadrant. I like it. For very specific geometries, you may turn on some of these other ones. I don't want to do that today though, because this is kind of my running settings that I go with when I draw. So today, not a terribly exciting day, but we're going to go ahead and draw a bunch of lines. Okay. So here you can go up to line. Here I've just typed in L, enter. Now I'm going to specify first point. I'm just going to drag down. Hit enter and that'll close it. If you hit escape, the line disappears. So yeah, now that we have this line, I'm going to take this and I'm going to create a rectangular array out of it. So here you can either go to rectangular array, or you can go ahead and I think you can just type array, pick rectangular, and now it gives you a bunch of different types of well, things that you can change. So here I'm going to change because I drew the vertical lines, I'm going to change my rows to 1. I only want 1 row, so I'm going to hit R, enter. Instead of the standard 3, I want 1, hit enter. It says the distance between rows. Well, I only have 1 row, so it doesn't matter what the distance is between them. And then there's an incrementing elevation. This is how you can kind of striate them. I don't want that to happen. I don't really care what that is. So now I've got it to 1 row. Now I'm going to change the number of columns. So I am going to draw 15 different columns. Hit enter. The spacing between the columns, I'm going to go ahead and make that be 2 and hit enter. I just want a little bit of a separation here. This is what I'm going to be creating as a line style guide. So here this looks like a nice sheet right there. I'll go ahead and hit enter. I guess if you want to exactly do what I'm doing, this line right here is 12.5 units long. So see that? 12.5. 12.5447. 12.5. Okay, well that was weird. Enter. Useful tool I'm going to give to you here, and you'll notice I zoomed in really far. If you've zoomed in really far or you're zoomed out really far and you just cannot find where your drawing is, useful tool that I use is something called zoom extents. So here you can either type zoom or you can just hit Z, which is the fast route. You go hit Z, hit enter. It gives you a number of options down here at the bottom. If you do zoom all, it will zoom to everything that you have drawn in this space. The only things I've drawn were those lines, so I would actually zoom me in on that. But say you accidentally drew something really far away, you need to go find it, do your zoom all, and you may be able to find it at one corner of where your drawing is. Otherwise, I will use zoom extents. We'll talk about using zoom scale later on. Zoom window is, say I wanted to just capture a window, and so it'll zoom to that window that I just drew. Z enter. Zoom object, you can select like a square and it'll zoom to the square. Here I'm going to zoom extents, enter, and it'll zoom back in on my lines, which is kind of like zoom all, but okay. You'll notice I had to escape a few times because I was like hitting escape because it like centers me, like knowing that I'm right there. For this video, we're going to be focusing on line properties. So one of the ways that you can change these lines First of all, this is all an array. Everything is connected to each other. I want to split them up so that I can edit each individual line. So to do that, there's an AutoCAD command called explode. I'm just going to go ahead and, with it selected, hit explode. And now you'll notice that when I select a line, I can select each one individually and then hit escape to deselect them. Otherwise, with them selected, you can also hit shift and click on them to deselect them. So that's kind of the way that this works. You can select them all at once and then hit shift click to deselect lines, or you can hit escape to deselect all lines. I like the escape method because that's kind of what I'm used to. I hit escape a lot, but sometimes it's useful when you have the shift click. Alright, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at how to change the way these lines look. So if I click on this and I go into properties, there's a number of things that I can do, and notice I'm on the home menu here. There's a number of things that I can do to change the way that this line looks. First of all, I can change the color. Now what this says is by layer. We're going to go into this for a second because we're actually going to talk about layers in this video. But this is one way that you can change the color, is just I want the color of this line to stay consistent with the layer that it is on. Okay. Most of the time for our drawings, this is how we're going to do it. In fact, I would recommend anytime you want a line to be a different color, always have it be by layer. You're not really going to want to modify this properties line unless you're doing a quick drawing and you only have a couple lines. It's just good drawing practice. But you can change the color here. You'll also notice that you have this thing that's a line thickness. Right now it's established by layer, but I can set it to be a different line thickness. It can be super thick, it can be really thin, it can be 0 millimeters, which is basically just hairline. Shows up like that. Escape. And then the last one is the line type. You'll notice that you only have by layer, by block, or continuous. There are other ones available. We'll get into that. But you can change line properties this way. Now, I will not be changing line properties this way. Like I said, really, you'll only use that block when you're making a quick drawing and you don't want to go through the process of setting up layers and doing things the right way. For this class, I will always encourage you to do it the right way, just because it's good practice to get in the habits of drawing and creating a drawing that is functional, that is useful, and that is expandable. If you handed this to someone, it would make a lot more sense if you draw it the right way. If you just start clicking lines and changing the way they look in the Properties tab, that does not look good. So what we're going to be talking about now is layer properties. The layer properties, layers are basically like, if you go back and look at the way that old school newspapers were printed, and I think newspapers are still printed this way, it would print one color, and then it would go through a separate machine that would print another color, and then it would go through another separate machine that would print a third color, and then you may print your black on top of that. So it was a cycling process where it took multiple machines in order to print one full newspaper. Each one of the layers of color would allow for differentiation of colors on the newspaper and kind of make it a little bit more interesting. And so every different color had to be established on its own layer. That's kind of an analogy for what this is. What we're going to be doing with layers is you can assume a layer is like a transparent sheet, plastic, you put on that has some lines drawn on it. And you can pull that transparent sheet off and put it back on at any time. And it gives you a lot of capability in handling the way that those layers work. We're going to be using layers extensively in this class, both in the final project and in the midterm project that you're working on, and also in the other modeling learning assignments that we're working on. So you do need to know this information. I would encourage you to set these up right. So what we're going to start out with is by going to this button, and this button right here is new layer. I will click on it and it will give me an option to name it immediately. I'm going to go ahead and name this new layer white continuous, or I guess solid continuous, because it's white on this black background, but it shows up black on the white background. It's both white and black. Color here shows up as white. We'll leave it as continuous. And there we go. So now we're going to come up with a new layer, and we're going to call this one the layout layer. I'm very specific about having a layout layer in every one of my drawings. And what I will do is I will turn it to some awful shade of yellow, usually something like this, a really pasty yellow color. Hit OK. It'll show up in my color manager as being that color. And then I'm going to expand this column out real quick. This is the option for plot. You'll notice that at the def points layer, this option is grayed out. The program will never print anything that is drawn on the def points layer. So you can have it there for reference. It can be in your drawing. It can be beautiful. You can draw an entire drawing on the def points layer, and it will not ever be something that you can export from the program. For my layout tab, I'm going to do that same thing, but I'm going to go ahead and click on this plot function. What that's going to do is it's going to shut down plotting. So here it will not plot that layer, just like what's going on with def points. Now there's a reason why I do this. It's because when I go to create my layouts, I don't really like the boxes to show up. So anything that I do not want to show up, specifically I put on the layout layer, and it'll help me arrange things. I can organize things really nicely. I can draw a bunch of lines on my actual layouts, and they will not show up because they won't print. So that's good on me. Now we're going to go ahead and create a couple of other lines. So here I'm going to call this one blue. In this blue line, I'm going to go ahead and change the color. I'm going to make it blue. I can pick this. That's a nice color, blue. I'll hit OK. And then I'm going to change the line type. Right now it's continuous, and that's the only option that we have to pick. Well, when AutoCAD gets loaded onto your computer, there are a bunch of different line types that get loaded into your computer as well. Notice you can use the file option. It's actually looking in support for AutoCAD, which is installed in there. But these are all of the different line types that come natural with the program. Now there are actually a bunch of other line types, and you can create your own line types. Some companies will create line types for different types of piping that they're using. They'll have a hot water line type. They'll have a cold water line type. They'll have a sewer line type. They may even have a brick wall line type for very, very specific types of features where all they have to do is draw a line and then put it in that line type, and that says, okay, this is what that is. It'll specify it. It'll make it look pretty. Just simplifies things using custom line types. We are going to be using different types of lines just as a way of getting some experience with drawing lines and using layers. So first one I'm going to grab is the ISO dash. You could also, I guess first one I'm going to grab down here is going to be the, not the center line. I'm not always a big fan. I'm just going to grab the dashed line. So here, I'll have dash. It'll be down here. Now, when I click out of the load menu that we were just in, your cursor is still on continuous. So if I hit OK, it stays on continuous. I actually have to now go back in and select dashed. Okay, and you'll notice that changes to dashed. Okay, so that's fun. Now I'm going to create another one called center. You can name these whatever. I won't actually know what you name them. For this one, I will make it orange. Hit OK. And I'm going to go in and load the center line style and hit OK. So it'll show up as center. Oh, and it is choosing not to print any of these. I gotta make sure that those are unclicked so that they actually print correctly. Also want them to be unlocked and visible. And then here this is frozen, which means freeze, which means that you can't add any lines to it. It's basically like the layer is frozen so that nothing else can get put onto it. The locked is whether or not it will show up on new layouts. Because we're about to create some new layouts, I want to have all of these unlocked. But it's not a bad idea when you do your drawings to lock them and then unlock them for specific layouts. But I know I'm going to be using all these layers on my layout, so I'm not going to lock them. And then this is whether or not it's visible in the model space. We'll kind of talk about the difference between these three a little bit later in this video. So I'm going to create a few other ones. This one's going to be dot, and dot is going to be, I will select red, and I'm going to load in a dotted line. There you are. You'll also notice that there's some option for 0.5 dotted line or 2 times dotted line. If you prefer those lines, you can use them. I'm just showing you what I do. Okay, we'll create another one. We'll call this one S. S is going to be purple. So here I'll pick a nice kind of darker blue purplish color. I will load in my batting, which is the S. Select batting, hit OK. And let's see, let's do one more. We'll have this one be the dot dash. So I will load in dot dash. You'll notice that here's like a hot water supply, gas line. Oh, we should probably just add gas just for the fun of it. Otherwise I'm going to have my dot, my dash dot. Go ahead and put that one in. And you'll notice that the line types start getting a little ugly the more we have added in. I will make this a green color. It's kind of a gross green. And then we'll do one for gas, because it's a fun word to say. It's a fun concept. And then we'll make this kind of a more maroon purple, a little bit of a darker color. You'll notice that for all of these except layout, I tended to choose a darker color. That's because it's going to show up better on my layout tab. And now for your assignment, you don't actually have to go with the same colors that I did, but you do have to have all different colors for your line types. And I'm going to change this to say gas. We can go with a zigzag line or tracks, train tracks. I like gas. And hit OK. Alright, so now at this point I've added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll add one more for an 8th line just for continuity. And here I'll just make this be hot water. Okay, and we'll select hot water. Usually it's red, but I've already got a red, so I'm going to go with a darker red. And then we'll load, and I'll add my hot water. You can also add phantom. Hot water. Okay. And there we go. Now I have all of them. So I'll exit out of my layer manager, which is in the layer properties button. And you'll notice if I hit this drop down menu, I can now see all of the layers that I just created. I've got the color. It doesn't show the line type here, but they do have the line type. Also lost my view, so I'm going to go ahead and type in Z, enter, E, enter. That'll zoom extents. Find my lines again. Now I'm going to set each one of these lines to something different. Okay, so this one, I'm going to leave this one at 0, which is the default line type. I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to go back to solid continuous. I'll hit escape. And then my next one, I'll just move down the layer. You notice that doesn't really show up very well on the screen. Layout, hot water, gas, dot dash, dot, escape, click the line, change the layer. I'm not going to do depth points. Center, escape, click the line, blue. Okay, so there's my array of different lines. Now, all of these tend to be a little bit darker colors. I could probably go back in and say, oh, well, for my model view, I really can't see these very well. I'm gonna lighten them up. Now, rather than having to click on the lines individually and change the color that way, I can just go in here and say, all right, S, I want to see you better. I'm going to change you to a very, very light blue. And hit OK. And now you'll notice that that line automatically changes because the line property is set to be colored by whatever layer it's in. So it's a nice feature of layers is that you can change all of the lines at one time that are on that layer to be whatever style it is. So you set the styles using the layer, and then well, the lines follow, I suppose. But there's a couple of other fun things that we can do with layers now. Let's say as I'm drawing something, I say, oh man, I've got this one layer that is just on top of everything else. It's kind of annoying. Like let's say I were to draw 3 lines like this. I guess that's 5 lines. No, that's 4. I can count. I'll go ahead and put all of these into the, well, I'll make them the S just because it's pretty. Now this is kind of all over everything. I can't really see my lines underneath them very well. What I can do is I can go in and I can turn off the visibility of my S layer. Okay, now I didn't delete any of my lines. My lines are still there, they're just now hidden. I can go back in and turn that back on when I want to. So this is really convenient, especially when you go to draw new lines. If something is in your way, you can turn the layer that it's on off and keep working like that. Okay. Now this freeze button, if I click this freeze, what it'll do is it'll shut it off and it will tell me I cannot add anything to this layer. It's basically as if the layer is no longer being used. Okay, it doesn't show up, it won't print, there's nothing there. I don't usually use the freeze command on there. This lock and unlock layer means that now, let's say I go to hit delete, it doesn't allow me to select them. It basically says that layer is there, I don't want anything being deleted off of it. I don't even want those lines really being selected in order to be deleted. So if I were to now, you'll notice I've got my green dotted lines over here, select all these and hit delete. It does not delete my locked lines. So that's kind of convenient. There is another aspect of layers, if I go into my layer properties, that is called the called the new VP freeze. So what this means is that every time a new viewport is created, it freezes those layers so that they can't be seen on that viewport. That means every time you create a new viewport, you have to pick which ones actually show up on that new viewport. Some people will just hit new VP freeze on every line and then pick which lines go in. I tend to be the other route where I like to shut off all of the lines as I create new viewports. Man, that's just me. Okay, so now that I've got these, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this is not locked. And then I'm going to delete this line right here. Okay, so I have my different line styles. Now I'm going to go into layout 1, and you'll notice that layout 1 is not set up with the title block that we had for our last video. So I'm going to right click on here, go to From Template. This will create a brand new layout. I will navigate to where I downloaded the AutoCAD.dwt file, which is in here, AutoCAD.dwt. Navigate to it, open it. I only have one sheet in there called ENG sheet. So now you'll notice that ENG sheet shows up down here. And I have this nice little pretty layout. I will go into layout and add a rectangular viewport. Right like this. Okay. Now it'll automatically center all of my lines. It will zoom extent the moment I put the layout down, which is kind of nice. It also does add the grid, so I'm going to double click in here and remove that grid, and then double click out of here or click model to get back into paper space. Okay. Now the outside boundary of this can be changed layers. So here I've got my viewport selected. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select layout. Now layout is the this is the line type that we said will not print. So it does show up. I can actually select it. I can draw lines to it, but it won't show up itself. Okay, that's how we want to do it on this video. I don't want to have that box around it. I rather enjoy the open look of having all those lines there. So with it already zoomed into all of the lines, I don't actually have to do anything here. My next step is to go down here, double click on my title block, and I'm going to change the drawing name to MLA 2. Class name stays the same. Inches, I'm going to change the scale to NTS. Change my initials, CJS. Change my page number, 1 of 1, and hit OK. So there we go. That is modeling learning assignment number 2. Now you will notice that all of these lines show up nicely. Sometimes you will have a case where you do not have lines show up nicely. If we would have drawn the lines a lot larger, or if I go in here and I zoom out, you'll notice that my lines are no longer really all that visible. Like I can't even read that unless I zoom in. There is something that you can do when you have that situation occur. I will do this often. Here I'm going to PSLT scale. Set to 1. PSLT scale, you set that to 1, which it should be there automatically. And then while I have the viewport selected, I'm going to type in line type, and it will show me all of my line types that I have available. I can hit show details, and when I hit show details, it'll say use paper space units for scaling. You're going to want to deselect this and hit OK. Okay, now I'm going to click down here to get out of my model view, or type P space, or double click out here on the margins, and I'm going to type regen and hit enter. Now that is supposed to fix my line types. Regen. You did not regen. Try this again. Double click in here, line type, show detail, use paper space, hit OK. You can also change the global scale factor and the current object scale. You can actually change those to scale up your line types if you want at this point. Otherwise, you can right click on a line in view. Double click out here. I might need to double click out here and type my PSLT scale. Set that to 1. There we go. And now hit regen. Okay, that did not work. Well, there's some AutoCAD documentation on how to do that. I'm going to try setting my PSLT scale to 0 and hit regen. Didn't work either. Thank you, AutoCAD, for being challenging today. Why are you doing this to me? Well, in any case, if your line types are not showing up, you can scale them. It's supposed to work by just typing line type, deselecting the use paper space, but that is deselected everywhere. So. Oh, you gotta hit regen while you're in there. Yeah. So it just resizes your lines. You can now globally scale them so that they show up a little bit more consistently. Here I've Z extents. Notice that all of my line types are a little smaller now. So I'm going to double click in here, line type. The irony of all of this is that I screwed up all my line types by doing this. I'm going to change my global scale factor now to 4 and hit OK. Cancel. Okay, and then I will hit regen, enter, get out of my model space, and now I've got all of my lines here. They're all scaled to a size of 4 so I can actually read them. And we are good to go. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and plot this sheet. Right click down here, plot, continue to plot a single sheet. Thank you, AutoCAD, for your warning message. Set this to AutoCAD PDF. The ANSI full bleed. What a terrible way of putting that. I'm just going to go with ANSI A. Plot layout. Here you can even scale line weights. And we'll go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to save this to my EGR 210 folder and call this MLA 2 lines, layers, and styles. Let's see what it comes up with. Did not print the top part of my page. Nice. Well done, AutoCAD. This is now the second week in a row I've had weird plotting issues where it doesn't know exactly where to plot on this. So for some reason it did not want to print the top part of that page. Let me go into my print settings again. Go to plot, continue to plot sheet. Instead of doing why does it always pick the ANSI full bleed? I don't know. You can also pick more metric sizes, but I'm going to leave it like that. We'll go ahead and replot with the ANSI full bleed A. Save it over this file. And we'll see what it does this time. Hopefully this is better. Yeah, but for some reason it wants to plot it all the way down there in the corner. I will have to figure that out by the time I do the next MLA sheet. But there we go. This is our drawing. It has all of our colors. You will notice that this line did not show up because we set that one to the layout view. This one right here also is really dim. I'm not sure which one that was. Yeah, it's just really dim and really thin. Alright, so one last thing I'm going to change before we go in here. I'm going to make this line really thick. So go to my layer properties, and now I'm going to change the line weight. So for my dot, in order to make this bigger, I'm going to set this to be 1 millimeter thick. Okay, we'll go ahead and hit OK. Close out of this. I don't know how to make those show up. My layout tab, my layout tab, it's not going to show up. If I hit regen, it won't show up. If I click in here and hit regen, it's not going to show up. How to make, I'm gonna Google this real quick. Line thickness. AutoCAD viewport. AutoCAD has a lot of documentation online. Okay, so here, change this. Blah, 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 blah. Display line thickness. Oh, this one you just have to click the line weight display. So I think it's either to pick the viewport, and then you go into line weight display. Let me find out where the line weight display is. You can type in LW default. There's a button too, I'm not sure where it is. But I will go ahead and type in now LW default, set it to 0, hit enter, and try that again. 0, enter. That wasn't quite what I was looking for. Usually AutoCAD has got better help desks than that. Okay, so here, these are the different styles picked, displaying correctly. Oh, I guess we don't need to do that today, but there is a way that you can make these lines thicker and have them show up. They don't naturally show up, but I do think if I actually printed this right now, it would show up. Let's find out. Close this real quick. AutoCAD, fancy full bleed. See if there's any way to like center. There isn't. It's too bad. Okay, I'll go ahead and hit scale line weights. I'll try that. Hit save. And this should actually create that thick dot that I wanted. Yeah, there it is. So there we go. You can change the thickness of your lines. Sometimes that's really helpful. Sometimes it's necessary, especially when you have really thin dots like that. You're going to want to make them thicker. Notice this piece doesn't doesn't show up very well. I might need to increase the line thickness or just make that darker. But this is a good enough end result. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to post this to Canvas. follow along with these steps, try to get what I had, and yeah, we'll see you